Hi, I'm Caitlin Lang. I'm the government and politics editor at IndyStar, and we're doing interviews with candidates ahead of the May primary. Today, I'm here with Congressman André Carson to talk about his 7th congressional district race. Thanks for being here.
Thanks. What an honor. Thank you.
So now you've represented this district for 18 years. What do you still have left to accomplish? Why run again?
That's an important question. I mean, I'm not plateaued. I'm just getting started. Since I've been in office, I've had over 22 bills signed into law with the help of Republicans by a couple of U.S. presidents. That's important to me because there are members who have served longer than me who haven't even had one bill signed into law. I brought over $1 billion back to Indiana, particularly Indianapolis, and I just secured, just a couple of weeks ago, $13 million for our airport, for Indigo, and for our sidewalks, and for community NGOs. And so there's more work to be done. Legislatively, I'd like to do more. My Secondary Barrier Act on airplanes passed, and now newer aircraft will have secondary barriers to protect pilots. I am the ranking member of the Aviation Subcommittee on Transportation, and safety is important to me. Having worked in law enforcement, I did a stint on the city council, but having worked in law enforcement, having worked for Indiana's Department of Homeland Security, safety is paramount for me. And those are one of the many things that I'm working on and I hope to accomplish. I reintroduced my financial literacy bill, and I've met with educators, I've met with superintendents who said, we would love to teach financial literacy in our schools, but we're stretched thinly because of testing requirements. Now, the objective isn't to make kids hedge fund managers, that'd be great, but it's to give them basic concepts on how to make sound financial decisions once they get out into the real world. And it's gained some traction. We've reintroduced it, but these are one of the many things that we've done and will continue to do.
Great. What about, you went through some of your accomplishments there, but can you tick off maybe 3 of your proudest accomplishments from the 18 years you've been in that position? Wow,
there's so many. Obviously, I was a part of the Affordable Care Act, expanding health care for hundreds of millions of Americans. I'm proud of the work that we did on financial regulatory reform. Myself, along with members of the Congressional Black Caucus, were able to create an Office of Women and Minority Affairs. And I think for me, the Duck Boat Safety Act, we had that tragedy happen with a few Hoosiers in Missouri a few years ago. That was so unfortunate. The Secondary Barrier Act, which I'm very proud of. And, you know, I work with Congressman Dan Burton as a very new congressman. There's a gentleman by the name of Greg Kiesling. He has a wife named Janet Kiesling. Their son, Chance, died in the military, unfortunately, a fellow Hoosier. And at that time, if a suicide occurred, you couldn't get a letter or recognition from the White House or the president. But because we reached across the aisle, worked with Congressman Burton, now there's a standard that even if it's a death in combat or if it's a suicide, families will still get recognition from the United States president. And I think that's an accomplishment because I come from a military family. I think it's important to recognize the sacrifices that men and women make who serve in our armed services and to remove the taboo and the stigma of mental health issues. Mental health is very problematic. I also sit on the Intelligence Committee, and mental health is very serious for those who serve in the FBI, the CIA, the DIA. And not only is mental health a concern, I created legislation that has addressed sexual harassment practices that have taken place, particularly not just the IC, intelligence community, but in the CIA. And those who have been afraid to report these actions can now seek some kind of protection, whistleblower protections, or just protection by calling out these abuses in institutions like the CIA.
I want to talk about your race, obviously.
Yes.
You know, you haven't been in a super competitive primary in a number of years, but now you're facing a number of candidates, at least one of which is raising a significant amount of money. Do you view the challenge as a sign that Indy Democrats want change?
Well, I view it as a sign of a healthy democracy. We welcome challengers. I welcome that because it gives me an opportunity to explain to people, to remind people, and to highlight the great work we're doing. Over $1 billion brought back to Indianapolis. Over 22 pieces of legislation signed by U.S. presidents with the help of Republicans into law. In many ways, it's unprecedented for someone like myself. Now, I'm a middle-aged guy, but in Congress, I'm young. I have members of Congress who say, oh, my daughter's your age, my son's your age. I'm like, oh, my goodness, right? What is going on here? But I think it's important in a healthy democracy where we have different voices represented, and that's what we're here for.
Why do you think this year specifically, though? Is there, I don't know, just some movement going on that's leading to more people being interested in running?
Well, there are always a few opponents. I always have a few opponents. I just think that times are changing. I think that people run for different reasons. Some run for business reasons. They want to get their name out there to promote their business interests. Some of them want to get their name out there to run for something else. Some are really concerned about people, and some are a part of the DC consultant class where they look at poll numbers, they want to airdrop someone in so they can control a seat to divert businesses to that person so they can grow their companies. And we're here for the people. We don't come to represent billionaires or come from a wealthy class. We come to represent everyday people and everyday Hoosiers, and that's what we'll continue to do by God's grace if the people put me in.
I want to talk about some of the issues that Hoosiers care about. You know, a majority of Americans are concerned about the cost of utilities.
Yes.
And recently, a group led by BlackRock subsidiaries announced it would be acquiring Indianapolis energy company AES Corporation. You put out a statement saying you were concerned about the deal for Hoosiers, but your opponents have criticized you for not getting involved earlier. I'm curious, do you think that you could have done more or could have gotten involved earlier?
Well, you know, as a consumer, I've been very critical about my own utility bills. But also for me, my push was that this happened just as citizens group. It becomes a public utility where Hoosiers have a stake in what's happening. That did not happen. But I've always been critical. I mean, it's important when opponents want to be critical, they should do their research first. So we live in an era where clickbait is important, and folks are trying to get clicks and likes to grow their consultant firm or grow their company or get their name out there. But the facts are clear. AES is an important stakeholder. I've met with the leadership there. I've met with employees there. Employees are our constituents. And I listen to what people on the ground are saying. It's not the acquisition I would have preferred, but as a member of Congress, I have an important role to be critical when necessary and to have influence when necessary. But these kinds of acquisitions, I have to toe the line of ethics and not put myself in the middle of it.
Right. What about, they've pointed to your campaign contributions as well. I know you've accepted money from BlackRock and AES more recently. Do you think that, were those problematic contributions?
Well, for me, I'm very clear about where I stand, whether it's speaking out to protect the people of Gaza, whether it's speaking out on a green energy deal, whether it's speaking out on improving our economy, where it's speaking out pushing back against the destruction of DEI. If people want to give to me, I'm clear about where I stand. When I was on the Financial Services Committee, there were many Wall Street firms who vowed to not support me and give me a check after they had given to me when I was clear about my position. And if a company gives to me, we take it by a case-by-case basis. If they want to give to me, I'm still a progressive. I'm still going to promote progressive values, and I can't be sold or bought by a check. Anybody who can be persuaded by a check doesn't have integrity. If you give to me, I'm Robin Hood. I'll take your check, and then I'm going to promote progressive values. We send people to a political boot camp every year because I believe in investing in young people. We send them to Washington, D.C. Many of our boot campers now, the president of the city council is a boot camper that we sent. We have a constable who's a boot camper that we sent. The chair of the 7th District, Ashley Gerbitz, is a boot camper. We have a township trustee who's a boot camper. Several elected officials are boot campers, and they've gone through that process because I personally sent them to D.C. to make an investment in our future. So that money can help us send another person to D.C. to develop them to become America's next great leader by God's grace.
Would you ever consider not accepting PAC dollars?
Oh, there have been many instances where we've declined PAC dollars, particularly check cashing entities. That was a personal gripe because of my mother having issues with them. And we've turned down a lot of PAC checks, absolutely. But again, we style our campaign on a Robin Hood model, taking from the wealthy, giving back to the less fortunate or working class people, regardless if you're black, white, theist or non-theist. We're going to support Hoosiers.
How do your contributors feel about that?
A lot of them not too happy. And even we've had folks give to us who aren't PACs, they're just wealthy, and they've been very disappointed with my positions as it relates to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, as it relates to me being outspoken about Trump's agenda. They vowed to never give to me again, but that's a part of it. But I think if you try to have some degree of integrity, you're going to upset a lot of people.
Mm-hmm. At least one of your opponents has called for the abolishment of ICE. Do you think the agency should be abolished? And if so, what would that look like?
I think if reformation is insufficient, then elimination has to happen. If ICE can't correct itself through the kind of reformations that are extreme and notable enough, then we have to start over, either assigning those duties and responsibilities to existing agencies or to start a new agency. Pre-ICE, when it was Immigration and Naturalization Services, INS, there were great failures there. ICE came in, and there's still an important function that ICE holds in terms of protecting our border from contraband coming in from criminal enterprises. But ICE as an entity, I think that there are men and women there who signed up to serve, but morale is low. This new crop of folks, they're there with a different kind of agenda, a different kind of mindset, and a different kind of training. And if that persists, it has to be eliminated.
Did you follow the state? I know you're obviously in Congress, but did you follow the State House, the most recent legislative session, and some of the ICE legislation?
Yeah, very disappointing in many ways. I think that there are circumstances in which law enforcement should work with federal law enforcement, state law enforcement, local law enforcement should work with federal law enforcement. But in these very bigoted, xenophobic times with a xenophobic president and a xenophobic agenda, absolutely not. I'm against it. So I've spoken to my colleagues with the General Assembly, either on the Senate side or House side, and they're disappointed too. And I stand with their disappointment, and I stand with their pushback. Another
issue, crime. Violent crime in Indianapolis has obviously generated headlines. I think some of that might be perception. It's not all in the numbers, but is there anything that you think should be done to address that issue, at a congressional level even?
Well, that's a great question. We've done so. I've secured funding to install laptops in police cruisers, hundreds of laptops in police cruisers. I've done a lot in terms of COPS grant funding. I've spoken to U.S. presidents about bringing COPS grant funding to Indianapolis. It has happened successfully. I think whenever you have larger populations, given the nature of human beings, you're going to have some element of crime. That's why you need a law enforcement presence. The question becomes, how are we including the community in the prevention of crime? I'm a criminal justice major undergrad. I can remember being taught that there are over, 16 policing styles or methodologies. The most popular that we know of is community policing. Community policing is important, but there are other policing models that we have to implement to get buy-in from those groups. I can remember serving on the city council and meeting with the head of the Pottery Club, which was really a crime watch club, because they had to change the name because they were being targeted. And when we have buy-in from citizens who are willing to, if you see something, say something, and report these crimes, I think that we can improve the statistics. But the reality is that there's a huge drug problem coming from the Mexico, oftentimes, or South American Chicago pipeline. It has spread across the Midwest. Law enforcement has addressed it. I've met with the police department, IMPD. They're doing a great job in pushing back. I've met with the FBI. I've met with other agencies, Homeland Security. We have a huge drug problem. And whenever you have drugs, you're going to have the result of drug involvement, either homelessness, increased drug addiction, obviously murders, and the influx of illegal money, which is enticing for criminal enterprises to try and clean their money. So you have this ecosystem, and you have stereotypes that don't help. But I think when there's more community involvement and engagement, you can't just blame one person or one entity. This is a community problem, and it takes the community to solve this issue.
President Trump has taken a different approach to homelessness than some of our local Indy leaders with the sort of housing first initiatives they're trying to start. What do you think the solution is, and is there anything more that can be done on the congressional level?
Well, as I talk about sometimes, my mom and I did a stint in a homeless shelter, and I spent time in a Guardian home, and that experience was very defining for me. I don't think there's a one-size-fits-all solution. I think we need NGOs involved. We have local NGOs who are doing a phenomenal job, and we've gotten funding for some of those NGOs. But it's going to take communities. It's going to take families. There's a huge mental health component to homelessness that communities are unafraid or are afraid of talking about. Oftentimes, communities that are very traditional, families that are very traditional, instead of seeking professional mental health care, they'll put that person in a basement. They won't talk about it. There's a great stigma associated with mental health, be it depression, be it bipolarism, be it schizophrenia. I think when communities get honest about addressing mental health concerns and oftentimes drug-related issues that come with it, we can destigmatize what it means to be unhoused or even homeless. But it's going to take resources, it's going to take community involvement, and we need programs and an ecosystem, which is why we host our annual job fair for adults and for young people every year to create this ecosystem of once you're unhoused and you're housed, how can we help you? Then, as you're housed, we can get you the mental health treatment you need. We can get you the addiction services that you need. We can then pair you with an employer who's willing to hire you, to create a sense of dignity, to create the ability for you to contribute back to society as a worker, because all work has dignity. And I think when you have that ecosystem of support and love and care, we could see homelessness decrease, if not overnight, in the next few years.
Looking at some international issues real quick, on the issue of the Iran conflict, should Congress be exercising more control?
I think so. I mean, the founding fathers, complicated as we all are, were very visionary. Congress is defined with having the authority and the ability to enact wars. We need a Congress that is very present, not just as a blank check for Trump's excess, but to act as a check on unchecked excessive overreach, presidential overreach. This war should have never happened without congressional approval. Yes, there are exceptions for presidents to enact wars, only if the lives of Americans at home or abroad are threatened. That test was not established, nor was it met. And so now we're in this conundrum. Our allies in the region are upset. I just had a meeting with the ambassador of Kuwait and Bahrain, and they're concerned about this effort. The Qataris, of which I co-chair the Qatari Congressional Caucus, they're concerned, and these are strong allies in the region. And now Saudi Arabia has vowed to help us in this effort, but I'm worried about the after effects. Indianapolis is home to the largest single sporting day event in the entire world, the Indy 500. I'm worried about sleeper cell operations. I'm worried about empathizers, sympathizers, state actors, non-state actors attacking sports events, attacking concerts, attacking monuments, all in the name of retaliation for what has happened to Ayatollah Khamenei. What needs to happen is we need a president who's not influenced by the last person he speaks to. We need a president who, after he disparaged in his first term the intelligence community, he broke the confidence of our Five Eyes partners. President Obama and the Congress had a deal on the table with our P5+1 nations. China was involved, Russia was involved. Donald Trump came in and absolutely dismantled a wonderful deal that took years to build. And so here he is again, dismantling and destroying a country without any clear objective. And so I think that Congress has to be involved. We need to debate this publicly so the American people can weigh in, and representatives that are sent to Congress to represent taxpayers have to have a say against Donald Trump's impulsivity and his excess and overreach.
I know we're starting to run out of time here, but I want to talk about voter turnout real quick too. I know that's obviously been a concern across the state, but in Marion County, we have seen pretty dismal numbers. What role do you think you should be playing in fixing that as sort of de facto party leader here?
Well, we engage with voters each and every day. We bring voters out when it's election time. I think what has happened, though, and I'm hearing this all over the city and all over the country, but particularly in Marion County, from the Latino community, but particularly the Black community, many are disillusioned with the political process. And so candidates who airdrop into the community without having had a relationship with the community, they want to ride the wave of Black voter participation. And when that doesn't happen, they want to blame a particular person, or they can't blame the community specifically because it would seem racist. So they want to blame an individual. And what they're missing is that we live in a new era. Voters are voting a la carte. They can say, okay, I'll vote for her, but I won't vote for him. I like this one, but I'll exclude that one. And they're missing the mark. Gone are the days where candidates could show up to churches, mosques, synagogues, cookouts, do the electric slide, do the cha-cha slide, and get reelected, or ride that wave and get into office. No, voters want to know your heart. Where are you from? What are your concerns? What do you think about this? How connected are you to the DC elite? How connected are you to corporate interests? How connected are you to consulting firm in the DC consulting class? They want to know where your heart is. How do you really feel about these very nuanced issues, these very direct issues? DEI. How do you feel about the economy? What does your agenda look like? How does your agenda differ from this person? And if you can't articulate that, if you're just saying, here I am, I'm the star, I was born to do this, I was born to lead you, let me be your messianic figure to tell you what to do, they won't go for it. And they're missing the mark because now influencers on social media can make or break an election. Now, you have to engage with younger voters differently. You have to engage with older voters differently. And they missed the mark because the Black community in particular used to be the mule that got the Democratic Party past the finish line. And now that that's not happening, a lot of candidates are frustrated, but they don't want to appear to be racist, so they want to blame an individual, but not themselves for not having the credibility that the community can trust.
So now are you that individual that they want to blame?
It's not me, it's we. You know, it's not one individual. I think that's too much to place on a person. I think it's a community effort. I mean, I work with our county chairs. I work with locally elected officials. This is a democracy is a collective enterprise. I think we make huge failures when we put all of our hopes, dreams, and aspirations on one individual. We're setting themselves up for failure, and we're setting ourselves up for failure. So it's a collective enterprise. We send people to boot camps. I'm always invested in young people. And, you know, I think with a lot of these candidates, not only do they blame individuals of the Black community for low turnout, I see this ageist approach. They want seniors to come out and vote for them, but they don't see seniors or older people as value enough to hold positions. I'm around young people all the time. I'm developing young people. I'm encouraging them to run for office. I'm helping them run for office. But I also can't forget a very reliable voting bloc in all 4 elections, and that's older Xers and older boomers. And they're even saying, hey, people now want to use us. They don't want to think about our institutional wisdom. They just want our vote, and they want to discard us. It takes a balance. You need young vigor, young ingenuity, fresh ideas, but you also need the seasoning and wisdom of more experienced people. I was one of those people. I was guilty of it myself. I got to Congress and I said, wow, the people my age and younger, it couldn't just be us because we cannibalize one another. We're competitive mates. We're friendly, but we're competitive. I need a boomer. I need someone there also who knows what plantar fasciitis means, what sciatica pain means, who has some grandkids who can stop people my age and younger from going overboard. And so I think there needs to be a healthy balance in our democracy. We can't just see older people for their agency to vote. We need to see their value and their wisdom, and we need younger people to develop and bring new ideas into the fold so we can have a representative democracy that truly speaks on behalf of Hoosiers.
I'll end on this. You've touched on this numerous times, but bottom line, 30 seconds, why should voters choose you over your three opponents that you're facing in the primary?
Because I'm a bold leader. I'm someone who comes from the people. I've been able, in my time here, to bring back over $1 billion to the state and to the city of Indianapolis. I just recently, under a Donald Trump administration, of which I've been supremely critical of, secured $13 million. So that's $1 billion plus $13 million just 3 weeks ago. And I've had over 22 bills signed into law since I've been into office, which is nearly unprecedented because you have people in office who have served longer than me who haven't had one bill signed into office. So with me, you see results. With me, you see boldness. You see someone who's not bought and paid for. You see someone who is only accountable to God and to the state of Indiana.
Well, thank you for joining us today.
What an honor.
That's a wrap for our first Meet the Candidate interview. Join us next time.